Hi, it's Dre Griggs of Obsidian Wisdom. Today I'm going to share with you 5 unexpected truths about financial independence. Most of what you've been told about financial independence is either half true or completely wrong. Today I'm going to pull back the curtain on 5 things nobody tells you about achieving financial independence until it's too late. And number 4 might just change the way you look at retirement forever. Truth number 1 is it's not about a magic number. I meet people all the time where they're trying to hit this number in their portfolio. And the number is what they believe will give them financial independence, they'll achieve financial freedom, and they never have to worry about working for money again. But the reality is, it's not about what money you have, it's about the cash flow you're building. And what I'm saying is that sometimes we can take that money and you put it in the stock market, and depending on the allocation and whether it's a dividend or whether you're investing in REITs or if it's aggressive or all this other stuff, we can figure out that that amount is going to be different that you need. That if your goal is just to live off of dividends and the average dividend is about 2.5%, then that means that you would need slightly more money than if your goal is to live off of REITs and REITs are closer to 8%, which is different than if you were to take that money and buy real estate because you only have to put 20% down to get the real estate and then you generate an income off of that. Normally we look at the rule of 1%, a very fancy way of saying that whatever the purchase price of the home is, you should be able to expect to at least receive 1% of that purchase price. So if the house is $300,000, you would expect to be able to charge a rent of $3,000 per month. That's the 1% rule. If you were to take that money and purchase a business, you almost are going to receive that annual amount that you purchase in cash flow every single year. And I've shown you all different businesses, and there's different places where people are selling them on a regular basis. And depending on how active you want to be in the business, you can purchase a business for $100,000, and that business is going to generate you over $50,000 every single year, which ultimately means that your investment portfolio does not need to be as large. And that's why it's not about a magic number. It's about how much income you need and how much income you're receiving from your investments. Truth number 2 is your lifestyle costs more than you think. Most of us are thinking, when I retire, I'm going to live off of a lower amount than I currently am. And there are ways that that could be true, right? You could move to a lower cost of living state. You can move to a lower cost of living country. You could maintain the exact same lifestyle. And because you're not investing 20% of your income into your retirement accounts, that means that you can live off of 80% of your income and maintain the exact same lifestyle. The issue is, for a lot of us, early in retirement, we got a whole lot of goals. We want to be traveling. We want to remodel the house. We want to do all these amazing things. Maybe we talked about like grandkids and gifting and all these other strategies that are going to be happening at the same time. That means that you might actually need a little bit more money than you were thinking. In fact, I knew of someone that I believe they had a budget of $10,000 a year that they were allocating towards traveling, but they spent all that in the first month and they had a whole lot more lined up to where they were spending future years of their travel budget in the very first year. We're all very excited. There are so many things that we want to experience, and many times that can increase what your budget is. In fact, it's very common that we assume that people have something called a retirement spending smile. And all the smile is saying is that early in your retirement, you spend a lot of money. A little bit later in retirement, you're kind of tired of being in the airport. You kind of seen that, done that, got 2 t-shirts. Then you start spending less around the middle of your retirement. That we don't spend hot and heavy every single year, but early on we do spend a lot. And later on we do also spend a lot. So the smile curves down as we spend less, and then it curves back up. Now, we're not traveling later in retirement, but we generally have a lot more healthcare expenses. And as we spend more in healthcare, that naturally means that we're just spending more. And so you do end up seeing that. And so it's very important to not just assume that your retirement lifestyle is going to cost less. Is it possible? Of course it is. You can sit on the back porch, read a good book, do a lot of local events, hang out with your community. But if your plan is to travel and do all these amazing things, then we need to be very mindful of what that retirement lifestyle looks like and how much money we actually need to fund that lifestyle. Truth number 3 is financial independence won't change your life. And what many of us are thinking is, as soon as I get my money right, I'm going to spend more time with my family. I'm going to go on these trips. I'm going to do all these things. Fill in the blank. That we're foregoing a lot of experiences because in our mind, we believe that we have to have our money right first. And there are situations where I think that makes sense. If you're single and young, it probably makes sense. If your children are grown and have left the house and you really want to hone in on your retirement investments, then that's another reason you might be able to do it. I have found for me personally that it makes sense for me to be able to maintain a certain lifestyle with my children because my children are getting older. They want to be on their phone more. They don't want to hang out with dad as much. And I would like to be able to have these experiences, these memories with them. And so I am building Obsidian Wisdom in a way that allows me to still be there for my children. I'm still putting in a lot of work, I'm still grinding and enjoying myself, but there's a certain balance that I'm trying to achieve with my time. Ultimately, the goal is for us to not make it to retirement with no idea of how we want to spend our time. Imagine achieving financial freedom, having control of all of your time, and having no idea how you want to spend it. I normally share with my clients the beginning of happiness wheel, and it's basically these 8 aspects of our life, and we just see how we feel about any of them. Normally, the more time you spend in any one, the better you feel. Whether that's your career, your finances, romantic life, you just feel better depending on how much time you spend in that. And then we look at whether or not we can allocate more time towards those things. I'm not someone that believes that we have to be balanced. I think that things are seasonal. It's almost like if you flipped a coin. If I got 10 heads in a row, it doesn't really mean anything. I just know, relatively speaking, it's more likely that I'll get tails in the future. But it doesn't actually mean anything. That ultimately it's a 50-50. And I think ultimately when you look at your life, when you're not focused on any one year, oh, I got 10 heads in a row this year. Well, no. Over my life, I have the balance. I have the 50-50. And to me, that's how I achieve my balance. I recognize the season that I'm in and the time that I can't get back. And that when my children are grown and gone, they're grown and gone. And ultimately, that means that I have to put my priorities in an order that allows me to achieve all my goals as long as I'm maintaining a certain order. And I often share with you all that story, and I wish I knew who to give credit to. I'm probably going to look it up one day so I can at least give credit to the person once. But the idea is that I have a jar and I have big rocks, I have small pebbles, and I have sand. You have to put the big rocks in first, followed by the small pebbles that fits in the crevices of the rocks, and then you put the sand in that fits in everything. That is your long-term goals, your medium-term goals, and your short-term goals. If you focus on your short-term goals first, then you don't have time for your long-term goals. If you focus on your medium-term goals, yeah, your short-term will fit in there, but your long-term goals won't. You have to have that guide. That's why I'm a goal-based planner. Tell me what your retirement lifestyle looks like, and I'll put the plan in place that allows us to achieve that goal in the time that we have. But if we allow the tail of the present to wag the dog of the future, then we end up losing that opportunity many times. Truth number 4 is that taxes don't stop in retirement. Uncle Sam has been waiting, and depending on where you have your money allocated is how much Uncle Sam is going to tax you. Most of the time, Uncle Sam wants to at least get one bite of the apple, at least. But if we are able to allocate our money in a way that lowers our taxes in retirement, there are strategies we can put together where we have a completely tax-free income in retirement. Then I'll share a video where I went through a few tax-free strategies, but ultimately that comes down to us and our planning. You cannot assume that you're just going to have lower taxes in retirement because you're thinking, I have my highest income earning years now, I'll make less in retirement, so naturally I'll pay less taxes in the future. The reality is we only have 7 tax brackets. The reality is we have $38 trillion in debt. And the reality is it's not a slam dunk that you're going to have lower taxes in the future from historically low tax rates that we have now. The reason that most of us make this assumption is because when we talk about investing in your 401k, that was a strategy of the 1980s. In the 1980s, you could get taxed on upwards to 90% of your income. So if you defer taxes and you're basically retiring right now, that's a phenomenal strategy. You're going to have an effective tax rate of about 60% on $100,000 in the 1980s, and you're now going to have an effective tax rate of 22% on that same $100,000 in 2025. Obviously, that's a win. No questions asked. But in 2045, are we positive that from historically low tax rates, that your taxes will be lower in retirement? Because if you have all your money in a pre-tax account, believe you me, that means it's going to be pulled out as ordinary income. And then you have required minimum distributions, depending on how much you have in the account, that it could possibly bump you into a higher tax bracket. Because what sometimes happens is we stack a bunch of income streams that we can't turn off. That you have a pension and then Social Security and then your required minimum distributions. And when you add all those income streams together, it puts you in a higher tax bracket. Or some of you may have rental income and you may have some business income. And then you have Social Security, and then you have your required minimum distributions. And again, you stack those income streams on top of each other, and you find yourself being pushed into a much higher tax bracket. Ideally, we have our income allocated in a way that we give ourselves as much tax-free income in retirement as we can, because measuring how much money we have is not the same as measuring how much money we get to keep in retirement. I once helped a client save hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes because they were able to move the money from those pre-tax accounts into after-tax accounts in their lower income years leading up to the age of 70. The more years that we have to spread those taxes, That gives us the ability to make sure we're managing our tax brackets, where we're not pushing ourselves into a higher tax bracket. And many times there are years where you're going to have much lower income. And if you're able to do those Roth conversions on those lower income years, you actually can find yourself paying much lower taxes over a 10 to 15 year span, instead of having all of it coming due at the exact same time later on into your retirement. And our fifth and final truth is that financial independence is a moving target. Many times what happens is we have this goal in our mind. This is what my lifestyle is going to be like. I already know where I'm going to live at, things I'm going to do. But as you and I both know, we change over time. We have new hobbies, new interests, new friends, new experiences that we're introduced to. The reality is that your financial independence is a moving goal. As your goals change, as you update your preferences, as just life happens, you have to update the plan. You need to go back and revisit it. Did someone pass early? We go through a divorce? Did we adopt a kid? Did we get laid off early from work? Or were we just stressed at work and we retired a little earlier than we were planning? Were they downsizing? Was there new opportunities? There are so many life events that happen. And as these life events happen, we need to go back and look at our plan. You already know we've had a really rough first quarter. Did the market impact our plan in some way? Do we need to make an adjustment? Did our health change and healthcare expenses increase, or did they just go with a new provider and we have to pay more out of pocket? Then we need to go back and look at the plan. As the market changes, as healthcare changes, as family relationships change, as our goals and desires and our income changes, we need to steadily be looking at the plan. That is the beauty of having a plan set in place. I had a client who was planning on working until 70, but the person who owned the company sold it. And when they sold the company, they laid off everyone that was at this particular location, and they moved all the work to their office in another state. That changed their overall plan in many ways, and we had to go back and revisit it. Because now they were thinking, well, do I want to get a new job? Do I want to relocate to that other state? Or do I want to just retire right now? What does that look like if I'm not able to get Medicare until 65, and I'm only 62 right now? And so we had to adjust the plan, and we put a new one together based on their new lifestyle goals. And they ultimately were able to decide, I'm not going back to work, Dre. I think I'm okay. I think I like being retired. And that is the beauty of having a plan with clear direction. If any of these truths hit home and you're wondering what a path to financial independence looks like, let's talk. I hope people design a retirement plan that adjusts as your life does too. Go ahead and click the link below to schedule your free retirement readiness call today.